You know, Mark, about my disdain in general of British politicians about their antics of playing the system
Yeah.
for their own pocket, so they can put some extra pounds in their pocket.
Okay. Yeah.
Who could forget the expenses scandal back in 2009?
All right. Yes.
Many claiming for things on their expenses that had nothing to do with their Member of Parliament job,
Mm.
like kennels,
Mm.
dog food, even a duck house.
I remember that. Yes. Yes.
Of course, when the scandal came to light, the MPs decided to rein it in
Mm.
and swiftly followed that up with a very generous pay rise.
Well, it's just honest.
A little closer to home, we saw the world's best dressed Prime Minister receiving more than his fair share of free gifts in the way of clothes, optical wear,
Yes.
soccer tickets.
Mm.
The list is quite extensive.
Mm.
But that, of course, wasn't enough because his wife got the same treatment as did the then deputy leader of this lot,
Mm.
who were in the administration now.
Yeah.
Only after they were found out did they decide to rein it in once again. And also, once again, this was swiftly followed up by a very generous pay rise.
Mm.
Yeah. Can you see the pattern?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yeah.
There was also another little scheme where the system was being played, only this time it sort of flew under the radar since it was discovered around 10 years ago. That was the practice of an MP buying a property in London and renting it out to another MP. Right? As the MPs received an allowance for the rent for accommodation away from their constituencies, this money was paid to the renters,
Mm.
the initial MP that bought the property. So basically, the public purse was paying the mortgage for these properties. And the MPs ended up with a house in London
Very good. Yes.
or a flat or some sort
Yeah.
of property.
Whatever. A property. Yeah.
Now, these three examples of playing the system were not illegal.
Mm.
However, unethical and sleazy they were. And back in 2012, when the renting scandal came to light, the parliamentary pay watchdog said it would review the practice.
Oh.
Looks like the watchdog just rolled over for a tummy rub because even today, recently elected deputy leader of this current lot, Lucy Powell, one of the people one would have thought would need to show a bit more of a higher level of ethical behaviour, didn't seem to read the handbook, and is lo and behold renting out a bought dwelling to an MP to rake it in from the public purse. To be fair, there are 5 MP landlords in the House of Commons, but they remain nameless because the ethics watchdog is still getting the tummy rub and is not barking, coming forth with the information. Yes, sir, a good gig if you can get it. Money for old rope, as they say. It's very difficult to meet a poor MP when they leave office. Oh, and my opinion about MPs playing the system for their own pocket still hasn't changed.
No. Okay. Right. Uh, are we suggesting that still our politicians are not necessarily there to do public service, but to feather their own nests, as it were? Um, I mean, I, I'm going to look at it positively. I think the most incredible thing, given that there's all this ability to do it, there's not actually more politicians up to it.
I'm sure there are, Mark. It's just that we don't know about it yet.
Well, I wouldn't like to think it, otherwise, why do we elect these people? Would be my next question.
It would be mine as well.
Yeah. Um, yeah, now I I'm gonna go look at the balance. The reason why, yeah, there is expenses and the good pay as well, is that we want good quality people in the position to make these decisions for us and represent us. Else we could get into a position where only the landed gentry can afford to actually represent us. which is not representative of the entire population. You understand what I'm saying? So only those with means used to only be the only ones that be able to afford to become politicians or go into parliament. Yeah. And yeah, if you've ever seen the famous, the speech at the end of the Cromwell film, which never actually happened, but it's certainly a very good piece of screenwriting by someone. Yeah, they're scoundrels. Yeah. And they weren't there necessarily for their own self gain, but for power and everything else. Now, I know in my past, whenever I put expenses in, I had to be very, very careful what I applied for. My manager would check it. This was then checked by an accounts department who may knock it back. If my manager let through something that shouldn't have gone through, he would get a rollicking. And so I was asked the question, why did you put that on there? I wasn't asked this, but you understand that was the procedure. I have known expenses that have gone through and people have got disciplined for it. Not me, I may add.
The big difference, Mark, is that you were in the private sector, right?
Public one as well, yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Private sector is a lot different than the service.
Yeah, I mean, the public sector does tend to be a bit different. Is you put it on there and then it's up to someone else to catch it. The private does tend to be you are a little bit more responsible for your own actions, as it were. If you're trying to fraud your manager, you're trying to fraud the company. Sorry. Yes, and that can have there's consequences. And private companies are actually quite sharp about this because for example, the Jeff Bezoses, the Elon Musks, and the Alan Sugars, and all the other people don't actually like to get one over on them. However, we might think about them, they have to justify everything they do to the tax man, etc. Okay, so as well. Now we had this thing years ago called compliance that came into British industry, where you couldn't even get a meal bought for you without declaring it in the private sector and the public as well. So like you went out with clients, they bought you a meal, you were duty bound to put it onto a form that was then looked at by the compliance managers or the compliance people who are attached to human resources, and they were checking that there could be no consequences, more importantly to the company and to yourself as well. Yep. So the idea was you didn't get a free meal out of them. I was never in that situation. May have got some Christmas gifts and things like this, like a bottle of wine or things that all got officially signed off by the company. But yeah, there were other things as well. But it was we had this compliance, and I think it came in part due to the scandal, like you said, the 2008, 2009. We say 2009, but it was happening way before then.
Of course, I mean, it's 2009 is when it was found out.
Yeah.
So,
the journalism
way before then.
Yeah, the files that went in and ended up in the Telegraph's possession. Yeah, it was quite embarrassing. Yeah, but again, the reason, this is all done for the politicians is so that they have they potentially could have a very short career. Okay, they choose to do it of 5 years, up to 5 years, and then they're out. And that's the way it works. And they have to be paid a salary. They are making from very, very responsible decisions. I've got nothing against them being paid a reasonable salary. Maybe say you get paid this salary, that's it. You are now responsible for how you spend that money. Yep. And
can you think off the top of your head of one responsible decision this Parliament, the House of Commons, has come up with?
No, you're asking me to. I'm turning theoreticals. I'm not talking actualities yet, and I was getting onto this. Yes, when we're looking now at the quality of our inverted commas lawmakers and leaders, I would question if they're value for money. In the private sector, as you've just mentioned, they're not. I would argue that more than a few of them are not good value for money. And I'm not knocking all of them. There are some ones that probably do try and do a good job and represent their constituents to the best of their abilities. It is difficult sometimes, but these people do try and work at it. We can have a cynical view. I mean, somebody ultimately has got to be a politician. As the saying goes, politicians are like sewers. They're required to keep the effluent moving. Occasionally they stink.
Yeah.
Yes, the current administrations we have, the current lot we have, are very, very disappointing, to say the least. Um, and I,
Yeah, I'm not going to be jumping up and down on this current lot because the last
yeah,
lot
yes,
was also
yeah,
left an awful lot to be desired.
yeah. There's a trend that
This
slips
rot
in.
has been this rot has been setting in around about 14 years now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's the uni party or whatever else you want to call it. They're all well, okay, I don't want them fighting each other, but it's the old thing is they'll put on a public display for us shouting across the chamber and then probably going and getting drinks on expenses and meals on expenses with each other round the
in
back
their
somewhere. Yeah.
in their subsidised cafes and bars they have in the house in the
Well, okay.
Westminster.
That's what I said. Maybe look at how all this is gone, give them money, and like the rest of us, how they choose to spend their money is then down to them, not down to us. Or we have to make our own life decisions.
Yeah,
It,
you
it's
missed,
always
missed an important point I was making.
mm,
The bars and restaurants that they go to are
yeah.
all subsidised.
I know about this. Yeah.
We are paying for their lunch, their almost free lunch.
Well, it can be argued that they sit down together and they're meant to be discussing um, the business of the day. So you could argue it's
What
business
the
lunch.
chambers for?
Well, okay, yeah. I'm only I'm only saying what the theories are, not actually what actually happens.
No, well,
Yeah. You've got that one, and then you've got the okay, we're not affected by that anymore in the UK. You've got the European call, where a certain politician called for sorry, the European Parliament, where a certain a former MEP called Nigel Farage actually showed what he could claim on expenses, quite open about it. Yeah, the whole thing is rigged. The whole thing, and like you say, they only cry about it when they get caught. There is a big difference between what is legal and what is ethical. Unfortunately, it's got to be like that. If you start screwing down people so much they can't move or other things, it's up to people to choose to be ethical, not legal. And maybe that's how we measure our politicians. With regards to housing, I've often said this. I don't know if there's any disused military barracks around London at all. I'm hearing at the moment they're going to be put into other uses. What does a politician really need for accommodation when because they got Portcullis House where they've got meeting rooms and their own offices and everything else, yeah, which was purpose built a few years ago for them to do that. What do they really need? They need a bed, probably a desk to work at, a toilet, and yeah, possibly somewhere to make a cup of tea or coffee. Yeah, a hotel, in effect. Yeah. So why not? Why not? Why are we paying all this money for expensive accommodation in London where we could actually have one that they could all be together as well if they choose to remain in London to work? You understand what I'm saying here?
yeah, well, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
one that's
But
suitable. Yeah.
next time you phone up your MP, ask him.
Well, I think my MP we're in about just over an hour from London,
I should
Westminster.
I should imagine that would be a very short conversation.
Yeah, well, I keep meaning to write to the guy, but things keep changing so fast. And the letter gets longer and longer, and I'm thinking, yeah, it would take to the end of 5 years to actually sort all
Will
this out.
I will I ever send this letter off?
Of course I won't. I've got it written. I haven't sent it yet. Well, things keep changing, and then the leader keeps promising things. The prime minister keeps promising things. I'm thinking, oh, maybe he's walking along the street and hearing what the man on the street wants them to
Uh,
do.
the fresh smell of innocence.
Well, I've often believed keep giving people a chance, they may come round. The poor guy, you know.
It's that very same smell as the a newborn baby's head.
I've got a few grey hairs to be newborn. Yeah, these didn't appear overnight. Well, they are appearing overnight now, but yes,
Yeah.
um, yeah. Unfortunately, we're stuck where we are. A, I'm going to ask you this blunt question. Okay, if so, like a general election was called next week, or yeah, okay, yeah, I think it's too close to Christmas, but I know I'm asking this in theory. And so, like, the present lot disappeared, and then they all got replaced by another administration. Do you think it would all change?
One lives in hope, but I think that people by nature are corrupt.
Mm,
It just depends on the degree.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
and you just got to try and rein it in. Cut all the loopholes, make
mm,
everything stricter,
yes.
and make it branded. If you are caught with your fingers in the till or trying to play the game or trying to play the system, you know that you get taken out quickly and you get replaced, so that they know that you don't do it again. That's what happens on Civvy Street.
Yeah.
If you do something wrong, you get taken to court and you get fined or you go sent to prison.
Mm.
There's no reason why Parliament should be any different.
Well, yes, but that's the problem. How many by-elections could we actually suffer in the country?
Well, they had a good try at it with the last lot with three or four prime ministers in the space of 12 months.
Well, yeah, I mean, well, to say British politics is going through a bit of a rough patch um, is an understatement.
Yeah. Well,
Maybe this is part of the evolutionary process of a political system. Maybe we need to have maybe the British system needs to have a good hard look at itself.
what we need is a huge meteorite to get rid of these dinosaurs in the House of Commons.
Well, I think that would be quite a shot to do it. Yeah, there's entire films written about this, and remember, yeah, in some years ago, there was a guy who had a moustache and a beard who kind of entered into it and had that
Let's,
intention as well,
let's wait for the next elections.
whenever they may be. I'm still going with March 2026.